The morning sun painted the dome of New Busan colony in soft golden light. 8-year-old Han Sol pressed her small hands against the clear walls, watching the alien birds fly outside in the red sky. Her father Do Hyun was working in the terraforming station nearby, and her mother Mi Young was in the research lab studying the local plants. Han Sol loved mornings like this. The colony felt safe and warm, like a big bubble protecting everyone inside. She could see the other families going about. Their daily work, farmers tending to earth crops that somehow grew in alien soil, engineers fixing the water systems, and children like her playing in the community areas. "Han Sol, stay close to the dome," called out Mrs. Park from the daycare center. "Remember the rules." Han Sol nodded but kept exploring. She was brave for her age, always curious about everything around her. Her parents said she got that from both of them. Her father's love of building things and her mother's need to understand how everything worked. The first sign of trouble was the birds. They all flew away at once, screeching in their alien language. Han Sol frowned and looked up at the sky. Something was wrong. Then the ships came. They dropped out of the sky like black stones, sleek and dangerous. The colony's warning sirens started screaming, a sound Han Sol had only heard during practice drills. But this was not practice. "Everyone inside! This is not a drill!" Security Chief Taemin's voice boomed over the speakers. "Lock down all sections immediately!" Han Sol ran toward the community center where all the children were supposed to go during emergencies. But the black ships were already landing, and creatures she had never seen before were coming out. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but they were covered in scales that changed colors. Their heads looked like earth lizards, but bigger, with yellow eyes that seemed to glow. They carried weapons that hummed with energy, and they moved like hunters. The Kethvar had found New Busan. Do-hyun dropped his tools and ran toward the community center when he heard the alarms. His heart pounded as he thought about Han Sol. Mi Young was already running from the other direction, her lab coat flying behind her. "Where is she?" Mi Young grabbed Do-hyun's arm. "She should be at the daycare," Do-hyun said, but his voice was worried. The Kethvar moved through the colony like they had done this many times before. They knew exactly what they wanted. Their leader, a tall reptile with silver scales, pointed at different buildings with calm precision. "Secure the perimeter," the leader said in a voice that sounded like rocks grinding together. "Find the young ones. The hunt requires fresh prey." Taemin and his security team tried to fight back, but their weapons were meant for colony protection, not war. The Kethvar had come prepared for battle. Energy blasts lit up the dome as the 2 sides fought. Han Sol hid behind a large planter, watching the strange creatures move through her home. She was scared, but she was also angry. These things were hurting her friends and family. One of the creatures stopped near her hiding spot and sniffed the air. "Interesting scent," it said to another Kethvar. "Young human, fear mixed with defiance." The creature's head turned toward Han Sol's hiding spot. Its yellow eyes found hers, and instead of screaming or running, Han Sol stood up and stared back. Her small hands were shaking, but her eyes were fierce. "You cannot have my home," she said in her clear young voice. The Kethvar leader heard this and walked over. He looked down at the small human child who dared to speak to him without fear. "What is your name, young hunter?" he asked. "Han Sol, and I am not your hunter. You are the bad ones here." The leader's scales shifted to a darker color, which meant he was amused. "Vexthol is my name, and you, little Han Sol, have just made yourself very interesting to my clan." Do-hyun and Mi Young reached the community center just as the Kethvar were dragging children out of the building. They saw their daughter standing small but proud in front of the alien leader. "Han Sol!" Mi Young screamed and tried to run to her. But Taemin held her back. "You will get yourself killed," he said through gritted teeth. "And that will not help her." Vexthal looked at the parents and then back at Hansol. Your young show promise. She will provide sport for our hunting. Grounds! No! Do-hyun broke free from Taemin's grip and ran toward his daughter. Two Kethvar warriors stopped him with their weapons. Hansol looked at her parents, then back at Vexthal. If you take me, my family will come for me. Humans do not leave each other behind. Vexthal's scales rippled with what might have been laughter. Child, your species is small and weak. You barely travel between stars. We have hunted for 10,000 years across the galaxy. No one comes after the Kethvar. You are wrong, Hansol said simply. The Kethvar loaded their captured prey onto their ships. Hansol was put in a special cage that adjusted to keep her comfortable. They wanted their hunt to be challenging, not easy. As the ship lifted off, she pressed her face to the small window and saw her parents fighting against the Kethvar, holding them back. Her father was shouting something she could not hear, and her mother was crying. The colony grew smaller below them, then disappeared as the ship entered hyperspace. Hansol was alone with aliens who wanted to hunt her for fun, but she was not afraid anymore. She was thinking. Her father had taught her that every machine could be understood if you watched it long enough. Her mother had taught her that every living thing had patterns you could learn. The Kethvar thought they had caught easy prey. They had no idea what humans were capable of when their children were threatened. As the ship jumped through hyperspace toward the hunting grounds, Do-hyun was already at the communication center. His hands shook as he sent a priority message toward Earth. This is New Busan Colony to Earth Command. The Kethvar clan has attacked us. 47 dead. They have taken human children, including my daughter Hansol. They took our children for sport. Please, someone has to come for them. The message shot across space toward Earth, carrying with it something the galaxy had never seen before. A call that would wake humanity's protective instincts and change everything forever. In her cage, Hansol began, counting the aliens around her and watching how their ship worked. She was just one small human child, but she carried something the Kethvar did not understand. She carried the absolute certainty that her people would come for her, no matter what it cost them. The message from New Busan reached Earth 3 days later. Admiral Kyung-soo was drinking his morning coffee in the United Terran Defense Council headquarters when the priority alert flashed on his screen. He read it once, then read it again, his face growing darker with each word. They took a human child, he said quietly to himself. Then louder. They took a human child for sport. Within an hour, every major leader on Earth knew what had happened. President Jin-woo called an emergency meeting that brought together military commanders, scientists, diplomats, and industrial leaders from every nation. Fleet Commander Hai-wan stood at the center of the war room, displaying what little information they had about the Kethvar clan on the large screens around them. The Kethvar are nomads, she explained to the gathered leaders. They have been moving through space for thousands of years, raiding settlements and taking young creatures for their hunting rituals. Most species consider them a natural disaster. Terrible, but unavoidable. How many have they taken over the years? Asked Dr. Soo-jin, Earth's leading expert on alien psychology. Conservative estimates suggest hundreds of thousands of sentient beings. They prefer young creatures because they provide better sport. They have never faced serious resistance because most civilizations write off the losses as the cost of expanding into space. President Jin-woo stood up slowly. He was not a tall man, but something in his manner made everyone in the room pay attention. How long would it take to mobilize our entire fleet? He asked. Sir, our entire fleet would be perhaps 50 ships against a clan that has hundreds, said Defense Minister Sang-min. The galactic community has tried to stop them before with much larger forces. I did not ask about the galactic community, Jin-woo said quietly. I asked how long to mobilize our fleet. 2 weeks for everything we have in service, Hae-won answered. And how long to mobilize everything we can build? The room fell silent. Industrial Coordinator Nam Sik cleared his throat nervously. Sir, if you mean total war production, converting civilian shipyards, automotive plants, electronics factories, we could triple our fleet size in 6 months, but the cost would be enormous, and it would mean stopping almost all civilian production. Jin Woo nodded. Do it. All of it. Dr. Su Jin leaned forward. Mr. President, with respect, this seems like an extreme response to one raid, terrible as it was. Jin Woo turned to face her. Doctor, let me explain something about humans that perhaps you have forgotten while studying aliens. We bond with our children differently than most species. We do not just protect our own offspring. We protect all human children as if they were our own. And when someone hurts our children, he paused and looked around the room. When someone hurts our children for sport, we do not seek justice. We seek the complete elimination of the threat. The room was completely quiet. Then Kyung-soo spoke. Up. Sir, are you declaring war on the entire Kethvar clan? No, Admiral. I am declaring the end of the Kethvar clan. Across human space, the response was immediate and total. News of the attack spread through every human colony, every space station, every ship. The reaction was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. In the shipyards of Luna, workers began 12-hour shifts to convert cargo vessels into warships. On Mars, weapons factories that had been making mining equipment started producing military-grade energy cannons. Earth's orbital platforms transformed from peaceful research stations into command centers coordinating the largest military buildup in human history. But it was not just the military response that surprised alien observers. Captain Woo Jin, commander of the destroyer Incheon's Fury, received his orders and felt something he had never experienced before. Not anger, but cold determination. We are not going after raiders, his orders read. We are going after an entire civilization that thinks human children are acceptable prey. Show them what happens when humans decide something needs to stop existing. Young engineer Young-ho found himself assigned to a new department called Economic Warfare. His job was simple but terrifying. Identify every species, station, and trade route that helped the Kethvar survive and make plans to destroy them all. We are not just going to fight them, his supervisor explained. We are going to cut off their food, their fuel, their weapons, their allies, and their escape routes. When we are done, the Kethvar will have nowhere in the galaxy to hide. Meanwhile, diplomat Yoon-ji received perhaps the strangest assignment in human diplomatic history: convince other species to either help humanity or get out of the way. Make it clear, her instructions stated, that any species that aids the Kethvar in any way will be considered an enemy of humanity. Any species that helps us will be protected by Earth for as long as they want our protection. The galaxy began to notice that something was different about humanity's response. Most species, when attacked by the Kethvar, would send a few ships to try to rescue their people. If they failed, they would mourn and move on. Humans were doing something else entirely. They were treating the attack as a declaration of war against humanity itself. Ambassador Tolvar of the Hegemony Council watched the human military build up with growing concern. He had seen many species respond to Kethvar raids over his long lifetime, but never anything like this. They are mobilizing their entire civilization, he reported to his superiors. Not just their military, their entire industrial capacity, their entire economy, everything. It is as if someone had declared war on their homeworld. How many ships do they have? Asked the council leader. That is the problem. 3 weeks ago, they had 47 combat vessels. Today, they have 86. At their current rate of construction, they will have over 300 within 6 months. Impossible. No species can expand their fleet that quickly. The humans can. They are converting everything that can hold weapons into warships, cargo haulers, research vessels, even civilian transports. And they are building new ships faster than we believed possible. Back on Earth, Dr. Su-Jin was studying psychological profiles of human responses to threats against children. What she found worried her. "Admiral," she told Kyung-soo, "I have been analyzing human behavior patterns in response to this attack. What I am seeing suggests that humanity will not stop until the Kethvar are completely extinct." "Is that a problem, Doctor?" "Sir, I do not think you understand. When I say extinct, I mean that humanity will hunt down every Kethvar in the galaxy. They will destroy their ships, their bases, their breeding grounds, their history, everything. This is not a rescue mission anymore. This is extermination." Kyung-soo was quiet for a long moment. "Doctor, they took human children to hunt them for entertainment. What did they think would happen?" As the human fleet prepared to launch, President Jin Woo made one final announcement that was broadcast to every human settlement and transmitted to alien governments across the galaxy. "The Kethvar clan has made a mistake. They believed that humanity was weak because we are peaceful. They believed that we would accept the loss of our children because other species have accepted such losses. They were wrong." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of an entire species' determination. "No human child will ever again be hunted for sport. We are not just going to rescue the children they have taken. We are going to make sure the Kethvar never take anyone's children again. To the Kethvar, wherever you are hiding, you have awakened something in humanity that you do not understand. We are coming for you. All of us." Han Sol woke up in a cage that was bigger than her bedroom back home, but still a cage. The walls were made of some kind of energy field that buzzed when she touched it. Beyond the walls, she could see other cages with creatures she had never seen before. "Do not touch the barriers," said a voice from the cage next to hers. "They will hurt you badly." Han Sol turned to see a creature that looked like a cross between a cat and a bird, with soft blue fur and small wings that could not lift it. Its eyes were large and sad. "My name is Han Sol. What is your name?" "I am Miktar. I have been here for 3 months. This is my 4th time in the hunting grounds." "4th time?" Han Sol felt a chill. "What happened the other 3 times?" "I survived. Most do not survive even once. The Kethvar call me their greatest challenge now." Miktar's wings drooped. "I think that means they will never let me go, even if I win." Hansel looked around at the other cages. There were dozens of them, all holding young creatures from different worlds. Some were crying, some were too scared to move, and some just stared at nothing. "How many of us are there?" she asked. "Right now, maybe 60, but they bring new ones every few weeks and—" Miktar did not finish the sentence. Hansol understood. She walked to the front of her cage and studied the energy barrier carefully. Her father had taught her that every machine had rules, and if you understood the rules, you could find ways around them. "What are you doing?" Miktar asked. "Learning," Han Sol said simply. Meanwhile, the human fleet was moving through space faster than anyone expected. Captain Wu Jin stood on the bridge of the Inchin's Fury and watched the star charts that showed their progress toward the first Kethvar supply station. "Sir, we are detecting communications chatter ahead," reported Communications Officer Bo-Ram. "It sounds like the Kethvar are surprised that anyone is following them." "Good," Wu Jin said. "Let them be surprised. What is our ETA to the supply station?" 4 hours, sir. Signal the fleet. When we arrive, I want everything destroyed. No. Survivors. No records left intact. No warning sent ahead. The Kethvar need to learn that their supply lines are no longer safe. Back on Earth, Engineer Young-ho was coordinating what humans were calling economic warfare, something the galaxy had never seen before. Instead of just chasing the Kethvar directly, humans were destroying everything that helped them survive. "Target acquired," he reported to Admiral Kyung-soo. "Faction leader Grixmal has been selling fuel to the Kethvar for 30 years. His operation has 17 stations across the Outer Rim." "Status of those stations?" 6 destroyed by our advanced scouts. The others have surrendered and agreed to stop all trade with the Kethvar. Grixmal himself is requesting protection from human forces. Kyung-Su nodded grimly. Granted. Anyone who stops helping the Kethvar gets our protection. Anyone who continues helping them gets treated like the Kethvar. It was a simple policy, but it was working. Word spread quickly through the galaxy that humans were offering a choice: help us end the Kethvar or be ended with them. In the hunting preserve, Han Sol had been studying the Kethvar guards for 3 days. She noticed they all followed the same patterns, the same routes, the same timing, the same blind spots. They were confident that their prisoners could not escape, so they were not very careful. That was their first mistake. Miktar, she whispered, during the sleep period when the lights dimmed. How many times have prisoners tried to escape? Many times. But the preserve is huge, and even if you get out of the cages, there is nowhere to go. We are on an asteroid in deep space. What if we were not trying to escape? What if we were trying to break their systems? Miktar's large eyes widened. What do you mean? My mother studies living things, and she taught me that when you hurt a predator, it either runs away or gets angry and makes mistakes. My father builds machines, and he taught me that if you break the right parts, the whole machine stops working. Han Sol pointed to the central control tower that overlooked all the cages. That tower controls everything. The cages, the artificial environments, the communication systems. If we could damage it, the Kethvar would know someone was fighting back, Miktar said slowly. They might get angry and hunt us all immediately. Or they might make mistakes, Han Sol said. My people are coming for me. I know they are. But they need time to find this place. If we can slow down the hunts and make the Kethvar focus on controlling us instead of hunting us. She did not finish the sentence, but Miktar understood. The first human attack on a Kethvar supply station shocked the galaxy. Captain Wu Jin's fleet did not just destroy the station. They erased it so completely that other species could not even find debris afterward. How is that possible? Asked Ambassador Tolvar when he received the reports. The Kethvar station was heavily defended. The humans did not fight it, his aide reported. They surrounded it and used some kind of weapon that dissolved the entire structure at the molecular level. Nothing was left but empty space. Across 3 sectors, other species began receiving the same message from human diplomats. The Kethvar. Clan is now considered an enemy of humanity. Any assistance provided to them will be considered an act of war against Earth. Any assistance provided to us will be rewarded with full human protection and trade benefits. The choice was simple, and most species made it quickly. The Kethvar had been a problem for thousands of years, but humanity was offering a permanent solution. Meanwhile, Fleet Commander Hei-Wan was tracking down every piece of information about Kethvar hunting grounds that existed in galactic databases. We have identified 12 possible locations for their main preserve, she reported to the War Council. But finding the right one could take months of searching. What do we need to narrow it down? Asked President Jin Wu. Intelligence from inside the preserve, or someone who has been there before. Find me someone who has been there, Jin Wu said simply. It took 2 weeks, but they found him. Veltar the Survivor, a member of the Quinn species who had escaped from a Kethvar hunt 15 years ago. He was the only known escapee in galactic history. The preserve is hidden in the void between galaxies, he told the human intelligence team. A hollowed-out asteroid that moves constantly. But I remember the star patterns around it. With your navigation systems, I could find it again. And you are willing to help us? Asked Intelligence Officer Min Ho. Veltar's 4 eyes glowed with an emotion humans recognized immediately, the desire for revenge. The Kethvar took my clutchmate when we were young. I have spent 15 years hoping someone would finally make them pay. If humans are truly going to end them, then yes, I will help you find their killing ground. Back in the preserve, Han Sol's plan was working better than she had hoped. She had managed to convince 12 other prisoners to help her, and together they had begun small acts of sabotage that were driving the Kethvar guards crazy. Food dispensers stopped working. Environmental controls malfunctioned, making some. Areas too hot or too cold, security sensors gave false alarms. Nothing major, but enough to make the Kethvar worry that their perfect preserve was having problems. Huntmaster Vexthol stood in the control tower, his scales shifting to angry red colors as he watched his subordinates struggle with system. Failures! How can prisoners in energy cages cause these problems? He demanded. We do not know, Huntmaster, replied his chief technician. The malfunctions appear random, but they are happening too often to be natural. Vexthol's yellow eyes focused on the cage holding the small human. She was sitting quietly, apparently doing nothing. But something about her made him suspicious. Double the guards around the human child, he ordered, and move up the schedule for the great hunt. I want to see what this little predator can do when she is truly challenged. In her cage, Hansol felt the Huntmaster's eyes on her and looked up to meet his gaze. She smiled, not a happy smile, but the kind of smile her father had when he solved a difficult engineering problem. The Kethvar thought they were the hunters. They were about to learn that humans could be something much more dangerous than prey. The great hunt began at dawn on the preserve's artificial day cycle. Hansol was released into a massive forest environment that stretched for kilometers inside the hollowed asteroid. The trees were real, taken from a dozen different worlds, and the dangers were real too. You have until sunset to reach the safe zone at the preserve's center, Huntmaster Vexthol announced through speakers hidden in the trees. I will be hunting you personally, little human. Show me why your species thinks it is special. Hansol touched the small metal device she had hidden in her clothing, a piece of broken circuitry that Miktar had helped her steal from a food dispenser. It was not much, but her father had always said that sometimes the smallest tools could do the biggest jobs. She was not planning to reach the safe zone. She was planning something much more ambitious. Meanwhile, the human fleet had grown beyond all galactic expectations. What had started as 50 ships was now over 200, with more arriving every day. Captain Sang-Ho commanded the newest addition to the fleet, the Busan's Revenge, a ship built so quickly that it still smelled like fresh metal and electronics. Admiral, he reported to Kyung-Soo, we have confirmation from Veltar. He has identified the preserve's location. It is exactly where he remembered, a rogue asteroid in the void between the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies. How long to get there? 18 days at maximum speed. But Admiral, there is something else. Our intelligence teams have been analyzing Kethvar communications, and we think they are planning to accelerate their hunting schedule. Kyung-Soo felt a cold anger settle in his chest. They know we are coming, so they want to kill the children before we can rescue them. That appears to be their plan, sir. Signal all ships. We leave for the preserve in 6 hours, and prepare the planet crackers. Sir, planet crackers are designed to destroy entire worlds. The preserve is just an asteroid. I know exactly what they are designed to do, Captain. After we rescue our people, I want to make sure the Kethvar understand that their hunting days are over forever. Back on the preserve, Hansol was moving through the alien forest with careful steps. She could hear Vexthol somewhere behind her, tracking her movement, but she was not trying to hide. She was leading him toward the place she wanted him to. 3 days of studying the preserve's layout had taught her something important. The artificial environments were not just decoration. They were connected to the asteroid's main power and life support systems. If someone knew exactly where to cause damage, they could affect the entire preserve. Her father had taught her that every system had weak points. Her mother had taught her that predators always followed predictable patterns when they hunted. Hansol was counting on both lessons being true. She reached a small clearing where 3 different environment zones met: the forest, a desert area, and what looked like an ice world. The junction point was marked by a large mechanical structure that hummed with energy. "Clever little human," Vexthol's voice called from the trees behind her. "You found one of our environmental control nodes, but that will not help you escape." Han Sol turned to face him as he emerged from the forest. Up close, he was even more terrifying than she remembered. Nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that shifted color as he moved and claws that could easily tear her apart. "I am not trying to escape," she said calmly. "No? Then what are you trying to do?" Han Sol held up the small piece of circuitry she had been carrying. "I am trying to break your perfect preserve." Before Vexthol could react, she jammed the device into an access panel on the environmental control node. Sparks flew, alarms began blaring, and the lights in all 3 environment zones started flickering wildly. "Impossible!" Vexthol lunged toward her, but Han Sol was already running toward the ice zone where the cold would slow down his reptilian reflexes. Behind her, the environmental node was cascading failures throughout the preserve systems. Temperature controls malfunctioned, gravity generators stuttered, and most importantly, the communication arrays that connected the preserve to the outside galaxy went completely dark. In the central control tower, Kethvar technicians panicked, as their displays showed system failures spreading like a virus through the preserve's infrastructure. "Huntmaster Vexthol is not responding," reported the communications officer. "All contact with the hunting zones has been lost." "How can one small human cause this much damage?" demanded the preserve commander. "Sir, we are detecting massive power fluctuations. If this continues, we could lose life support for the entire preserve." "Then stop it. Send every available guard into the hunting zones. Find that human child and end this immediately." But it was too late. Han Sol's sabotage had created exactly the chaos she had hoped for. Instead of a controlled hunt, the preserve was now in crisis mode, with guards running everywhere and systems failing faster than they could be repaired. More importantly, the preserve's communication blackout meant that the Kethvar could not call for help or warn their fleet about the human armada that was racing toward them. 18 days later, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the void between galaxies. Admiral Kyung-Soo stood on the bridge of the flagship Terra's Wrath and stared at the target that Veltar had helped them find. The Kethvar preserve was enormous, an asteroid that had been hollowed out and converted into a mobile base the size of a small moon. Around it, a dozen Kethvar warships patrolled in defensive formations. "Sir," reported Fleet Commander Haywan, "we are detecting no communications from the preserve. Their transmitters appear to be offline." "Weapons status? All ships report ready. Planet crackers are charged and standing by." Kyung-Soo activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "This is Admiral Kyung-Soo to all human vessels. Today we end the Kethvar clan's reign of terror. Our mission is simple. Rescue every prisoner in that preserve and make sure the Kethvar never hunt children again." He paused, thinking about Han Sol and all the other children who had been taken over the centuries. Show them what happens when humans decide that something needs to stop existing. The battle began immediately. The Kethvar ships were powerful and had been designed for thousands of years of successful raiding, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. Human ships did not fight like other species. Instead of engaging in traditional space combat, they used coordinated swarm tactics that overwhelmed the Kethvar defenses. Ships that would have been cargo haulers just months ago now bristled with weapons and moved with deadly precision. Captain Wu Jin led the first wave of boarding parties toward the preserve itself. His mission was simple: find the prisoners and get them to safety before the real destruction began. "Remember," he told his teams as they prepared to breach the asteroid's hull, "there are children in there who have been waiting for us to come. Do not let them wait any longer." Inside the preserve, Han Sol was still running from Vexthol through the malfunctioning environmental zones. The Huntmaster was furious, his scales shifting through angry colors as he chased the small human who had turned his perfect preserve into chaos. You cannot run forever, little predator, he called after her. And when I catch you, your death will not be quick. I do not need to run forever, Han Solo called back. I just need to run until my people get here. Your people? Your species barely has a space fleet. They will never find this place. That was when the explosion started. The sounds of the battle reached even the deep interior of the preserve as human ships engaged the HFY defenders. Han Solo smiled as she heard the familiar hum of human weapons echoing through the asteroid's hull. They found me, she said simply. Vex Thol's scales went pale with shock. Impossible. No species has ever tracked us to the preserve. You have never fought humans before, Han Solo said. We protect our children, all of them, and we do not give up. The Hunt Master raised his weapon, but before he could fire, human soldiers burst through the wall of the ice zone. Captain Wu Jin led the charge, his plasma rifle already targeting the HFY leader. Step away from the child, Wu Jin said, in a voice that left no room for argument. Vex Thol looked at the armed humans, then at Han Solo, then back at the humans. For the first time in his long life as a hunter, he understood what it felt like. To be prey. How did you find us? He asked. We followed the trail of everyone you have ever hurt, Wu Jin replied, and we brought enough firepower to make sure you never hurt anyone again. The rescue of the prisoners took 3 hours. Captain Wu Jin's teams moved through the preserve with deadly efficiency, freeing every cage and gathering the survivors in a safe zone that the humans had secured near their breaching point. Han Solo was reunited with Miktar and the other prisoners she had helped organize. Many of them were weak from captivity, but alive. As human medical teams worked to treat the rescued children, Han Solo stood with Wu Jin and looked back at the preserve. That had been her prison. How many more places like this do they have? She asked. According to our intelligence, this was their main hunting ground, Wu Jin replied. But there are other bases, other ships, other members of the clan scattered across the galaxy. Are you going to hunt all of them? Wu Jin looked down at the 8-year-old girl who had sabotaged an entire alien preserve and smiled grimly. Yes, all of them. Outside the preserve, the battle was already over. The HFY defensive fleet had been destroyed so quickly that some ships never had time to send distress signals. Admiral Kyung-Soo stood on his bridge and watched as human ships positioned themselves around the massive asteroid. Sir, reported Fleet Commander Haewon, all prisoners have been evacuated. The preserve is clear of non-combatants. And the HFY inside? Approximately 3,000 clan members remain on the asteroid. They are demanding to negotiate. Kyung-Soo activated his communication system and broadcast directly to the preserve. This is Admiral Kyung-Soo of the human fleet. You have 30 seconds to surrender unconditionally, or we will consider you enemy combatants. The response came from Hunt Master Vex Thol, who had been captured but was still alive. Human, you do not understand what you are doing. The HFY clan has ancient rights under galactic law. Our hunting traditions are protected by the Hegemony Council. The Hegemony Council did not protect our children, Kyung-Soo replied calmly. Your 30 seconds are up. The planet crackers fired simultaneously from 6 different human ships. The weapons were designed to break apart entire worlds by destabilizing their geological structure. Against an artificial asteroid, they were incredibly effective. The preserve that had existed for thousands of years and housed the trophies of hundreds of extinct species simply ceased to exist. In less than 10 minutes, it was reduced to debris, so small that it would drift apart and disappear into the void between galaxies. The galaxy watched the destruction with shock. Never before had a species responded to a HFY raid with such total devastation. They destroyed the entire preserve, Ambassador Tolvar reported to the Hegemony Council. 10,000 years of HFY history gone. The humans did not just rescue their people. They erased the clan's most important cultural site. This cannot be allowed to continue, declared the council leader. The humans are becoming too aggressive. They must be stopped before they destabilize the entire galactic. Order! With respect, Tolvar said carefully. I am not sure that is possible anymore. What do you mean? Sir, our intelligence suggests that the destruction of the preserve was only the beginning. The humans have identified every Kethvar base, every allied species, every trade route, every hiding place. They are not just fighting a war, they are conducting systematic extermination. As if to prove his point, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Human fleets were appearing at Kethvar bases that had been secret for centuries. Ships that had raided peacefully for generations were being hunted down and destroyed. Species that had traded with the Kethvar were being given ultimatums. Help. Hunt them down, or be treated as enemies. On the human command ship, Dr. Sujin was analyzing the psychological impact of their campaign. What she found confirmed her earlier fears. Admiral, she reported to Kyung-Soo, we are seeing a fundamental shift in how other species view humanity. Before this conflict, we were considered a mid-tier civilization, promising but not threatening. Now we are being classified as an apex, predator species. Is that a problem? Sir, apex predators change entire ecosystems just by existing. Other species adapt their behavior based on the threat that apex predators represent. The galaxy is already adapting to us. She brought up a display showing diplomatic communications from across known space. In the past month, 17 species have requested human protection. 23 others have offered to provide intelligence about Kethvar operations, and 6 species that were previously neutral have declared the Kethvar to be enemies of their own governments. Kyung-Soo studied the data. They are choosing sides, yes sir, but more than that. They are choosing our side because they are afraid of what happens to species that do not choose our side. Meanwhile, on the rescued ship carrying Han Sol and the other former prisoners back toward human space, something else was happening. The children who had survived the preserve were talking to each other, sharing their experiences and learning about the humans who had come to save them. Miktar sat with Han Sol in the ship's observation lounge, watching the stars go by. Your people are very different from what we were told, he said. What were you told? That humans were weak, that you were new to space travel and not very important, that no one would come looking for us because losing a few individuals was normal in a galaxy this big. Han Sol was quiet for a moment. My father once told me that humans are not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest species, but we are the most stubborn. When we decide something is important, we do not give up until it is finished. And the Kethvar took something important? They took children, human children, but also children from other species. That made them our enemy. Miktar's large eyes reflected the starlight. What will happen to my people? The Kethvar took many from my world over the years. I think, Han Sol said slowly, that humans will want to make sure no one ever takes children from your world again. We protect our friends. She was right. Even as they spoke, President Jinwoo was announcing the Terra Doctrine to representatives from every major galactic government. Humanity offers protection to any species that requests it, he declared. Any attack on a species under human protection will be considered an attack on humanity itself. Any species that aids pirates, raiders, or slavers will be considered an enemy of humanity. The message was clear. Join the human sphere of protection, or face the possibility of being treated like the Kethvar. But it was the final part of Jinwoo's announcement that truly changed the galactic balance of power. The hunting of sentient. Children for sport is now considered a crime against humanity, regardless of which species commits it or which species is victimized. Any individual or organization that participates in such activities will be hunted down and eliminated. Across the galaxy, dozens of species that had operated under the assumption that their actions were too small to attract attention suddenly found themselves facing a terrible choice. stop their predatory behavior, or face the full wrath of a species that had just erased the most successful pirates in galactic history. The Kethvar clan had thought they were hunting one human child. Instead, they had awakened something that would reshape the entire galaxy. In her quarters on the rescue ship, Han Sol was video calling her parents on New Busan. Do Yun and Mi Young were crying with relief, but also amazed at what their daughter had accomplished. "You sabotaged their entire preserve?" Mi Young asked. "I remembered what you both taught me," Han Sol said simply. "Every system has weak points, and every predator has patterns. I just had to find the right combination." "Are so proud of you," Do Hyun said. "But Han Sol, what you did was very dangerous. You could have been killed." Han Sol nodded seriously. "I know, Dad, but I also knew that you would come for me. Humans do not leave their children behind. I just had to survive long enough for you to find me." She looked out at the stars streaming past the ship. "And now no other children will have to wait as long as I did. The Kethvar will not hunt anyone ever again." Behind her words was the quiet confidence of a species that had just announced to the galaxy that some things were unacceptable and that humanity had both the power and the will to enforce those standards. 5 years after the destruction of the Kethvar Preserve, Han Sol stood on the observation deck of the UTS Harmony, watching as another group of rescued children was brought aboard. These were Zalanti young ones who had been taken by a copycat organization that thought they could operate the way the Kethvar once had. They had been wrong. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Jae Sung, "that is the last of the prisoners. The raider base has been completely neutralized." Captain Han Sol, now 13 years old and the youngest ship commander in human history, nodded calmly. "Signal the fleet. Mission accomplished. Set course for the Zalanti homeworld to return the children to their families." The bridge crew, all adults who had volunteered to serve under the girl who had become a symbol of human determination, carried out her orders with quiet efficiency. Han Sol had not asked for command, but when she turned 12, she had requested permission to join the missions that rescued kidnapped children. The government had eventually created a special commission just for her. On the main screen, the debris of the raider base drifted in space. Another group that had learned too late that the galaxy had changed forever. The transformation had been complete and total. In 5 years, humanity had not just eliminated the Kethvar clan, they had eliminated the entire concept of hunting sentient beings for sport. The few groups that had tried to continue such practices had been destroyed so quickly and thoroughly that the galaxy's remaining predators had gotten the message: find a new hobby. But the changes went far beyond just stopping raiders. Admiral Kyung-soo, now in charge of the Galactic Protection Fleet, reviewed the latest reports from human-protected space. Over 40 species had requested and received human protection. Trade routes that had been dangerous for centuries were now completely safe. Piracy rates had dropped to nearly zero in human-controlled sectors. "Sir," reported Fleet Commander Hae-won, "we have another request for protection. The Korthak Confederacy is being threatened by the Scythian Empire and wants to join the Human Protection Zone. Background? The Scythian Empire has a history of enslaving conquered populations. The Korthak are a peaceful trading species with no military to speak of." Kyung-soo did not hesitate. "Approved. Send the Fifth Fleet to establish a protective perimeter around Korthak space. Make it clear to the Scythian Empire that any attack on the Korthak will be considered an attack on humanity." This had become routine. Species across the galaxy had learned that human protection was absolute and came with only one requirement: do not harm children, do not enslave people, and do not raid peaceful settlements. Follow those rules, and humanity would guarantee your safety against any threat. Break those rules, and humanity would guarantee your extinction. The Scythian Empire, like many others before them, decided that conquest was not worth facing human retaliation. They quietly abandoned their invasion plans and looked for easier targets, which were becoming increasingly rare as more species joined the human protection network. On Earth, President Jin Woo was meeting with Miktar, who had become the first alien ambassador to humanity. The young creature had grown into an adult during his time on Earth, and his unique perspective as both a former victim and a human ally made him invaluable in diplomatic relations. The Galactic Council wants to discuss humanity's expanding influence, Miktar reported. They are concerned that human protection zones now cover nearly a third of civilized space. Are they planning to challenge our authority? Jin Woo asked. No, sir. They are asking if humanity would consider taking formal responsibility for galactic peacekeeping operations. Jin Woo was quiet for a long moment. They want us to become the galaxy's police force. In essence, yes. The Council recognizes that human intervention has created the most stable period in galactic history. Piracy is down by 90%. Slave trading has been eliminated in protected zones, and trade disputes are being resolved through negotiation instead of warfare. What do they offer in return? Full recognition of human authority over peacekeeping, operations, access to all galactic databases and intelligence networks, and a formal seat as the senior member of the Galactic Council. Jinwoo smiled. 5 years ago, most of these species barely knew we existed. Now they want us to run their security operations. The galaxy learned that humans keep their promises, Miktar said simply. When you said no child would be hunted, for sport, you meant it. When you said you would protect peaceful species, you meant it. When you said you would eliminate threats to innocent people, you meant it. Meanwhile, on the planet New Busan, Do-hyun and Mi-young were watching their daughter's ship on the news broadcasts. The colony had been rebuilt and was now one of the most secure settlements in human space, protected by both advanced defenses and the knowledge that attacking human civilians would bring swift retaliation. She has grown up so fast, Mi-young said as they watched Han Sol coordinate the rescue mission. She had to, Do-hyun replied. The galaxy needed someone to show them what humans fight for. Do you think she will ever get to just be a normal child? Do-hyun considered this. I think Han Sol stopped being a normal child the moment the Kethvar took her. But look what she has become instead. On the screen, their daughter was speaking with the rescued Zalanti children, comforting them and explaining that they were safe now. Her young voice carried an authority that made adults listen and a compassion that made children trust her immediately. She has become exactly what humanity needed her to become, Do-hyun said quietly. Back on the UTS Harmony, Han Sol was finishing her mission report when Communications Officer Bo-ram brought her an interesting message. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the Hegemony Council. They want to speak with you directly. Me specifically? Yes, ma'am. The message says they want to hear from the human who started the Galactic Protection Movement. Han Sol activated the communication system and found herself face-to-face with representatives from the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. These were beings who controlled star systems and commanded fleets of thousands of ships. Captain. Han Sol, said the council leader, we wanted to thank you personally for what humanity has accomplished. The galaxy is safer because of your actions. I just did what any human would do, Han Sol replied. We protect our children, and we protect our friends' children too. Yes, and that simple principle has changed everything. We would like to offer humanity a formal role in galactic governance. Your species has proven that it can be trusted with power. Han Sol was quiet for a moment, thinking about the responsibility they were offering. I will pass your message to President Jin Woo and the Earth government. But I think you should know, humans did not do this to gain power. We did this because it was right. We understand that, the council leader said. That is exactly why we want you to have the power. After the communication ended, Han Sol stood alone on the bridge and looked out at the stars. 5 years ago, she had been a frightened child in an alien cage. Now she was a ship captain helping to shape the future of the galaxy. The change had not been easy. Humanity had been forced to become something it never intended to be, the galaxy's ultimate enforcer. But in doing so, they had created something unprecedented, a galactic civilization where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. Miktar joined her at the observation window. He had requested assignment to her ship, saying that he wanted to help rescue other children the way she had helped rescue him. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Becoming what you have become?" Hansol considered the question carefully. "Sometimes. I wonder what my life would have been like if the Kethvar had never come to New Busan. But then I think about all the children who sleep safely now because we stopped the raiders. All the species that trade peacefully because they know humans will protect them. All the worlds that will never experience what we experienced." She turned to look at her friend. The Kethavar thought they were just taking one human child for their hunt. They had no idea they were about to awaken a species that would reshape the galaxy to protect all children. Outside the ship, the stars shone with the light of 1,000 civilizations that no longer had to fear the predators that had haunted space for millennia. Humanity had not sought galactic dominance, but they had achieved something far more important. They had created a galaxy where being peaceful was no longer a weakness. The hunt was over. The protection had begun. And in the end, that made all the difference. Years later, when young beings across the galaxy learned about history, they would be taught about the day when one species decided that hunting children was unacceptable. They would learn about the humans who came from a small blue world and proved that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the determination to protect. And they would learn about a brave girl named Han Sol, who showed the galaxy that even the smallest person could change everything if they were willing to fight for what was right.